The human prototype stood on the platform, small and fragile among the tall, shining aliens. They looked down at him with eyes full of doubt and laughter. "Look at him," one alien whispered. "He cannot even hold the basic tools properly." The humans had been invited to the Galactic exhibition, a place where planets showed their best creations. Earth was a young planet, its technology simple, its people inexperienced, and here, in front of the most advanced civilizations, its prototype seemed weak, clumsy, and almost invisible. The human, named Kale, tried to steady his hands as he activated the small device. It hummed softly, its lights flickering, but it was nothing compared to the glowing machines around him. Aliens snickered, pointing their long fingers at his mistakes. "Pathetic," another alien said. "Earth dares to call this a prototype." Kale felt the heat of embarrassment rising in his chest, but he did not move. He had been prepared for mockery, but he could not let it stop him. The exhibition hall was huge, with high ceilings and floating platforms. Every species had come to watch. Curious about this so-called weak human, Kale remembered his training, the lessons about human instinct and cleverness. He took a deep breath and scanned the crowd, looking for any opportunity to show his worth. Then he saw her, an alien, female from a distant world. Her name was Syra Tall, with scales that shined like silver. She had stepped too close to one of the demonstration platforms. A small, venomous creature from Earth had escaped from its container. Its fangs were tiny but deadly, and it bit her on the thigh. The alien screamed, her voice echoing across the hall. The other aliens froze, unsure what to do. Some laughed nervously, thinking it was just a mistake. But Kale knew this was real danger. He acted without thinking, moving quickly towards some aliens shouted warnings, telling him to step back. "This is not your problem," they said. "Stay where you are, human." But Kale ignored them, focusing on the alien in front of him. He had learned something about the creature's venom, its effects, and how to remove it. It was risky, dangerous, but Kale trusted his instincts. The crowd watched in disbelief as Kale knelt beside Syra. He carefully held her leg and used his small tools to extract the venom. The alien struggled, her eyes wide with pain and fear. But Kale stayed calm, speaking softly, trying to soothe her. The room was silent. The laughter had stopped, replaced by tension. Aliens whispered to each other, amazed that a human had dared to act. Kale worked quickly, his hands steady despite the fear he felt inside. Minutes felt like hours, and the venom seemed stronger than he expected. He had to act perfectly, or both of them could be in danger. Finally, with a careful motion, he removed the venom and cleaned the wound. Syra gasped, her body relaxing, pain fading from her eyes. The crowd erupted into shocked murmurs, some clapping quietly. Kale stood up, breathing heavily. But his eyes met Syra's. She looked at him with gratitude, a mix of surprise and admiration. The aliens around them no longer laughed, their mockery replaced by curiosity. For the first time, Earth's prototype was not just a weak human. He was someone who had acted when others hesitated. The first spark of respect had begun to grow, and Kale knew this was only the beginning. Something bigger was coming, something that would test his courage even more. But for now, he had shown that humans were not to be ignored, and the galaxy had started to notice. Kale stood next to Syra, her breathing slow but still shaky. The aliens around them whispered, some shocked, some still doubtful. Did a human really do that? One of them asked, unable to hide curiosity. Kale ignored the murmurs and focused on the problem at hand. The small venomous creature was still loose in the hall, its eyes glinting, waiting for another strike. It moved fast, its tail flicking, dangerous even to the strongest aliens. Syra looked at Kale, her silver scales trembling. Would it come back? She asked softly, fear in her voice. Kale nodded. Yes, but we can stop it, he said. His hand shook slightly, but his mind was clear. He had learned how to handle the creature before, but now he had to act in front of hundreds of spectators. The risk was higher. The failure would not just be his, it could cost lives. The alien leaders stepped forward, their faces serious. You are risking too much, human, one said. Step back, before it bites again. Kale did not flinch. I can do it, he replied calmly. He grabbed a small container from his belt, filled with special tools he had crafted. The crowd leaned in, some holding their breath. No one expected a human to dare face the creature again. The creature hissed, its small fangs dripping venom. It seemed to recognize Kale, moving faster. attacking with precision. Kale moved carefully, observing its movements. He remembered his training, patience, timing, and courage. With a swift motion, he grabbed a small stick, gently guiding the creature toward the container. It hissed angrily, but Kale did not let fear control him. Aliens gasped, some stepping back in fear. No human could be so brave, one muttered, or so reckless. Kale's focus never wavered, his hands steady, his mind sharp. Finally, he lured the creature into the container and closed the lid. The crowd exhaled collectively, relief mixing with astonishment. Syra smiled weakly. "You saved us both," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. Kale wiped sweat from his forehead, trying to calm his racing heart, but the danger was not over. He knew it. Something about this situation felt strange, almost too simple. He glanced at Syra, noticing a small mark on her arm, glowing faintly. "Your wound. It's spreading differently," Kale said, concern creeping into his voice. The venom was more complex than he had thought, and it might be part of a bigger problem. The alien leaders moved closer, their expressions serious now. "Explain yourself." "Human," one demanded. "How did you survive this, and what will happen next?" Kale looked around, knowing he had to act carefully. He had knowledge, instinct, and courage, but he also needed strategy. He realized that helping Syra was not just about removing venom. It was about proving that humans had value beyond their small bodies and simple tools. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed through the hall. Aliens froze, their eyes widening in alarm. Something large was approaching. Moving fast, Kale felt a familiar spark of fear, but also a surge of determination. He knew the next decision would not just test his skill, it would test the very courage of humanity. The entire hall watched, silent, waiting for what he would do next, and Kale stepped forward, ready to face the unknown. Kale stepped closer to Syra, noticing the faint glow spreading from her wound. It pulsed softly, almost like it had a life of its own. The aliens around them whispered in alarm. "Her species, this is dangerous," one said nervously. Kale knelt beside her, examining the wound carefully. He touched the glowing mark with his fingers, feeling a strange heat. Most humans would have stepped back in fear. But Kale did not hesitate. He remembered what he had learned from studying Earth's creatures. Some poisons reacted to heat, others to pressure, and some only to careful extraction. Kale worked quickly, using his small tools to remove the venom residue. He mixed simple herbs from his belt, compounds humans had used for generations. Syra's eyes widened as the glow in her wound began to fade. The aliens gasped in astonishment. No one had ever seen a human act like this. With such precision and instinct, one of the alien leaders stepped forward, his voice trembling. You saved her," he said slowly, with nothing but instinct and small tools. Kale nodded, not looking up, focused on his task. Syra's breathing became steady. The glow disappeared completely. She slowly opened her eyes and looked at Kale, a mixture of relief and amazement on her face. You were remarkable," she whispered. Kale shrugged. "I just acted," he said simply. "I did what I knew was right." The crowd was silent, some unable to speak. Aliens began murmuring to each other, their expressions a mix of shock and curiosity. How can such a fragile being possess this skill? One asked. "Perhaps humans are not as weak as we thought," another said. Kale finally stood up, brushing dust from his clothes. He felt a strange pride, not from winning respect, but from proving his species could survive and act where others hesitated. Suddenly, the hall shook slightly, dust falling from the ceiling. A low rumble echoed through the platform, and a shadow moved near the edge. The larger threat Kale had sensed earlier was arriving. It was a massive alien predator, something the exhibition had warned against. Its claws were sharp, its eyes glowing red, and its roar shook the hall. Aliens stepped back in fear, some trying to hide. Kale stayed calm, feeling the adrenaline sharpen his mind. He looked at Syra, who nodded faintly, trusting him. Kale realized that this was more than just a test of skill. It was a test of courage, strategy, and humanity itself. The creature advanced, moving faster than expected. Kale studied its movements, noticing patterns, small weaknesses. He grabbed a simple energy net from his tools, carefully aiming it. With a quick motion, he threw it, catching the predator's leg. The hall erupted in gasps, aliens frozen in disbelief. The predator struggled, but Kale did not panic. He guided it toward a containment field. Using clever tricks he had learned from watching Earth's predators, finally, the massive creature was trapped safely. Its eyes glaring, but it could do no more harm. The aliens stared at him, their eyes wide, mouths open in shock. A small voice whispered, "Could humans really be more than they appear?" Kale looked around the hall, realizing he had changed the perception of his entire species. For the first time, humans were not mocked. They were respected. But Kale knew the story was not over. Something bigger, something unexpected, was waiting beyond this hall, and he was ready to face it with courage, instinct, and the surprising skill of a human. The hall trembled again, louder this time. Dust fell from the ceiling, and lights flickered. The aliens stared in fear as a massive shadow appeared above the platform. It was not just one predator this time. A swarm of armored creatures poured into the exhibition hall, their claws sharp, their mandibles clicking. They moved with speed and precision, striking anything in their path. The aliens panicked, some fleeing, some trying to defend their technology. Kale's eyes narrowed, sensing the danger clearly. This was no ordinary attack. It was an organized assault. Syra struggled to stand, her scales still healing from the venom. Kale grabbed her arm gently, guiding her to safety. "We need a plan," he said calmly. "We can't run forever." The alien leaders looked at him, surprised. "Do you think a human can lead?" one asked nervously. Kale did not answer, his mind already calculating. He knew humans were underestimated for a reason. They were smaller, weaker in appearance, but their minds could be sharper, faster, cleverer. He picked up a piece of advanced alien tech, a floating energy panel. It was delicate and dangerous, but Kale used it as a shield, deflecting the attacker's blows. The crowd gasped, many unable to believe a human could do this. Kale moved quickly, leading Syra behind him. He used the hall's architecture to his advantage, forcing the creatures into narrow paths. Some aliens tried to help, but Kale realized he had to act. "First, think faster than anyone else," he shouted orders, pointing where to move. Using his instinct to guide them, the swarm advanced relentlessly, claws scraping metal, mandibles snapping. Kale noticed a weak point in their formation, a gap near the energy field control. He ran, dodging falling debris, and reached the control panel. His fingers flew over the buttons, pressing in patterns he had never seen before. Lights flashed, barriers rose, and energy beams cut off the creature's path. The aliens behind him cheered, their admiration growing. Kale smiled briefly, knowing this was only the first step. Suddenly, one of the larger creatures broke through the barrier, its roar shaking the hall. Kale met its gaze, fearless. He remembered the tricks he had used earlier, small tools and instinct. He grabbed a nearby energy rod and swung, hitting the creature's weak point. It stumbled, confused, giving Kale enough time to activate the remaining barriers. The swarm was trapped, contained by the clever human's strategy. Aliens stared at him, awe replacing their fear. Syra looked at Kale, her eyes shining with admiration. "You saved us." "Again," she said softly. Kale nodded, catching his breath. He realized that humans were not just survivors. They could lead, think, and act when others hesitated. The alien leaders stepped forward, their voices respectful. "You have changed everything," one said. "Earth's prototype is no longer weak." Kale felt a strange pride, not in recognition, but in proving the potential of his species. Yet, in the back of his mind, Kale knew the danger was far from over. The swarm was only a test, a small part of a bigger challenge. Somewhere out there, something greater was watching, and humans would have to rise again. Not just to survive, but to show the galaxy what they were capable of. Kale looked around, ready, focused, determined. The mockery was gone, replaced with cautious respect, and the next chapter of humanity's story was about to begin. Kale stood in the center of the exhibition hall, his heart still racing. His swarm of armored creatures had been contained, the danger finally passing. Aliens around him whispered among themselves, some still in shock. He looked at Syra, who had recovered from the venom, her silver scales gleaming. You saved more than just me," she said softly. "You saved many of us." Kale nodded, feeling a quiet pride. It was not about glory. It was about showing that humans could act when others hesitated. The alien leaders approached him, their expressions serious but respectful. "You have proven something remarkable today, human," one said. "Earth's prototype is not weak. It is courageous and clever. Kale looked around. Noticing that even the younger aliens were staring at him with admiration, he realized that something had changed forever. The galaxy had seen what humans could do, not with power, but with instinct, courage, and cleverness. Cyrus stepped forward, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You have changed our perception of your species," she said. "Humans are capable of more than we imagined." Kale smiled, remembering the laughter and mockery from earlier. It felt distant now, almost like a lesson from a past life. He had faced danger, venom, predators, and doubt, and yet he had acted, survived, and proved humanity's worth. The crowd of aliens began to cheer quietly at first, then louder, voices blending into a chorus of surprise and respect. Kale felt a warmth in his chest, not from recognition, but from knowing that his actions had made a difference. The weak prototype of Earth was no longer laughed at. He was a symbol, a reminder that courage and intelligence were not measured by size or technology. Suddenly, a holographic message appeared from the Galactic Council. It announced that humans would now be considered for intergalactic research and missions. Kale felt a thrill of excitement, knowing this was only the beginning. He had opened the door for his species. Aliens would no longer underestimate humans. Earth would be seen as a planet of potential, not weakness. Cyrus smiled at him one last time, her eyes full of gratitude. "You will be remembered for this," she said, "not just as a human, but as a hero." Kale nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility. He knew that the path ahead would not be easy. Challenges would come, dangers would rise, but humans had proven that they could face them, with courage, instinct, and the determination to survive. As the exhibition hall slowly returned to calm, Kale looked at the stars beyond the transparent dome. He imagined the galaxies waiting, full of mysteries, dangers, and opportunities. He smiled, knowing humans were ready. The mockery was gone, replaced by respect, hope, and curiosity. Earth's prototype had changed the minds of 1,000 beings, and humanity had taken its first real step into the galaxy. Kale took a deep breath, ready for whatever would come next. He was small, fragile, and human, but he was not weak. He was capable of more than anyone had imagined, and the galaxy had finally learned that lesson. The story of Earth and its prototype was only beginning, and it would be remembered forever.